The Arctic chamber had been buried for millennia, forgotten beneath layers of ice and snow. Its metal walls, once gleaming with advanced technology, were now corroded and scarred by time. No human hands had touched it since the world above had been plunged into chaos. What was left of humanity had vanished long ago, leaving Earth as a barren, frozen wasteland. That is, until they came. The alien expedition had been scouring Earth for decades. To the Korvani, an advanced race of interstellar archaeologists, Earth was a fascinating enigma. They had no records of its downfall, no clues as to why it had gone silent. What little evidence they found suggested a species that had once been ambitious, reckless, and dangerous. But whatever humanity had been, it was gone now. When the Korvani team stumbled upon the Arctic chamber, it was a discovery beyond their wildest expectations. The structure was ancient, predating even their own recorded history. Its technology, though primitive compared to Korvani standards, was unlike anything they had encountered before. Most importantly, inside the chamber was a stasis pod, its occupant preserved in a state of suspended animation. The figure inside was unmistakably human. Male, mid-30s, muscular build. He wore a suit of advanced material that had degraded slightly over time but was still functional. The pod's interface was badly damaged, its systems flickering erratically, but the Korvani scientists managed to bypass the primitive controls and bring the pod's occupant back to life. As the stasis field dissolved, the human's eyes shot open. He gasped, his lungs filling with air for the first time in untold millennia. His gaze darted around the room, taking in the alien figures with their elongated, crystalline bodies and shimmering exoskeletons. He showed no fear, only confusion and then, quickly, cold calculation. The Korvani attempted to communicate, using a universal translator to project soothing tones and greetings. They explained their purpose, their curiosity, their desire to learn. The human listened in silence, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. "Where am I?" he asked, his voice hoarse but commanding. The Korvani leader, a scientist named Vrelnis, stepped forward. "You are on Earth. Your planet. But it is not as you remember it. We have revived you to learn about your people and your history. We mean you no harm." The human studied them, his piercing gaze unnerving even the most composed of the Korvani. "Earth," he murmured, a flicker of pain crossing his face. "How long?" "Approximately 12,000 of your solar cycles," Vrelnis said carefully. "Your civilization appears to have ended long ago." The human's jaw tightened. He closed his eyes, as if trying to process the weight of those words. When he opened them again, there was no sadness, only a sharp, calculating resolve. "Why did you wake me?" he asked. "To understand," Vrelnis said. "Your species was extraordinary. Your technological leaps, your capacity for both destruction and creation, it is unparalleled in the galaxy. We sought to learn from you." The human smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was sharp and cold, like a blade drawn from its sheath. "You don't know what you've done," he said. Before Vrelnis could respond, the human moved. Faster than any of the Korvani had anticipated, he leapt from the stasis pod, seizing a nearby tool that resembled a rod. He activated it instinctively, its tip emitting a crackling energy field, and swung it toward the nearest Korvani. The alien stumbled back, unhurt but stunned by the sheer audacity of the attack. The Korvani quickly restrained him with an energy field, their advanced technology neutralizing his movements. But even restrained, the human exuded a presence that filled the room. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't even angry. He was assessing, calculating, planning. "You don't understand what humanity is," he said, his voice low but filled with menace. "You've woken something you can't control." The Korvani dismissed his words as the bravado of a primitive being. They transported him to their starship, confining him in a secure observation chamber. Over the next few days, they attempted to question him, to glean insights into the lost human civilization. But he revealed little, instead probing them for information. He asked about their technology, their ships, their colonies. He spoke with an ease that unsettled them, as if he were the one in control. And then, one day, the alarms sounded. The human had escaped. The security cameras showed him dismantling his restraints with nothing but a shard of metal he'd pried from the chamber wall. He moved through the ship with terrifying efficiency, disabling systems and evading capture. By the time the Korvani realized what was happening, it was too late. The human had reached the command deck. When the Korvani guards burst into the room, weapons drawn, the human was already at the controls. He had bypassed their advanced security systems, using intuition and sheer willpower to adapt to the alien technology. The ship's engines roared to life as he set a course for deep space. "You think you're so advanced," he said, his voice echoing through the ship's intercom. "But you're soft. You've forgotten what it means to fight, to struggle, to survive. Humanity didn't die. We adapted. And now, thanks to you, we're back." The Korvani watched in horror as the human activated the ship's long-range communication array. He broadcast a signal into the void, a message in a language they couldn't understand. Moments later, their sensors picked up something impossible. Dozens of signals, faint but growing stronger. Ships, human ships, emerging from hidden vaults and ruins across Earth and beyond. The human turned to the Korvani leader, his expression cold and triumphant. "You woke me because you wanted to learn about humanity," he said. "Well, here's your lesson. Never underestimate us." The Korvani could only watch as their ship, now under human control, joined the growing fleet. Humanity, thought long extinct, had been given a second chance. And the galaxy would never be the same. As the fleet began to form, the Korvani stared in disbelief at the unfolding events. They had miscalculated, gravely so. The human, now in control of their flagship, had activated a network of ancient bunkers and hidden installations buried deep beneath the Earth's surface. From these chambers rose ships of a design unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, brutal, efficient, and brimming with weapons. Their hulls glimmered with alloy composites that absorbed light, their engines roaring with a ferocity that made even the Korvani tremble. The human, who identified himself only as Elias Cain, stood at the center of the Korvani flagship's command deck, issuing orders with the precision of a seasoned general. "You wanted to learn about humanity," he said, his voice calm but edged with menace. "You're about to see why that was a mistake." The Korvani scientists who had revived him were now prisoners, their advanced knowledge twisted into tools of their captor's will. Vrelnis, their leader, could only watch as Cain began assembling a coalition of forces from the awakened human ships. It became clear that Cain wasn't just another survivor. He was a remnant of humanity's military elite, a warrior from the old world, preserved for a time when his skills would be needed again. As more ships emerged from their frozen tombs, a chilling realization spread among the Korvani. This wasn't just a scattered group of survivors, it was an army. Humanity, it seemed, had planned for its fall. The bunkers and stasis chambers were not relics of desperation but deliberate contingencies, designed to ensure that when the time came, humanity would rise again. Cain's forces quickly began to organize. The human ships, though old, were upgraded with startling speed. Cain had leveraged the Korvani's advanced technology, integrating it into human designs to create a hybrid fleet more dangerous than either species could have imagined. Massive carriers, bristling with weapons, were outfitted with energy shields stolen from Korvani blueprints. Drones capable of autonomous combat swarmed from hidden silos, each armed with disruptor tech derived from the Korvani's own systems. Vrelnis attempted to reason with Cain. "You don't understand the galaxy you're waking into," she pleaded. "The Korvani are peaceful explorers. We have no quarrel with you. Let us help you reintegrate into—" "Reintegrate?" Cain interrupted, his gaze piercing. "You think this is about joining your fragile little galactic order? No. Humanity doesn't reintegrate. We conquer, we dominate, and we endure." The Korvani began to understand that Cain didn't just see the galaxy as a curiosity to explore, he saw it as territory to reclaim. To him, the Korvani weren't rescuers or allies. They were interlopers, caretakers of a galaxy that should have been humanity's alone. The first act of humanity's rebirth came swiftly and violently. Using the Korvani flagship's communication array, Cain sent out a galaxy-wide broadcast. His face appeared on every major channel, his voice carrying a chilling message to the stars. "This is Elias Cain of Earth. For millennia, humanity was forgotten, buried beneath the ice. But we have returned. To those who seek peace, you will stand aside. To those who resist, you will burn. The age of humanity begins now." The galaxy erupted into chaos. Civilizations that had long assumed humanity was extinct now faced an army rising from the ashes, armed with ancient wrath and a terrifying adaptability. Korvani colonies, unprepared for war, fell quickly to Cain's forces. He didn't annihilate them. He absorbed them, forcing Korvani technology and resources into his growing war machine. The Galactic Council, a loosely held alliance of species, scrambled to respond. Delegates from the Venari, Coriolis, and other advanced civilizations convened in a desperate attempt to organize a defense. They had mocked humanity in the past, dismissing them as primitives. Now they realized too late that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't its technology. It was its ability to turn weakness into strength, chaos into order, and enemies into tools. As Cain's fleet spread across the galaxy, his forces began to uncover relics of humanity's past, hidden on other worlds. Vaults filled with weapon prototypes, databanks of military strategies, and blueprints for weapons of unimaginable power were brought back online. It became clear that humanity had anticipated its downfall and had seeded the galaxy with the tools it would need to rise again. The Galactic Council attempted to strike back, sending fleets to intercept Cain's forces. But they were unprepared for the sheer ferocity of humanity's tactics. Cain's hybrid ships tore through their ranks with surgical precision, exploiting every weakness with chilling efficiency. The Council's fleets, accustomed to ceremonial skirmishes and bureaucratic stalemates, crumbled under the weight of a war they hadn't fought in centuries. Meanwhile, within Cain's fleet, dissent began to stir. Not all of the awakened humans shared his vision of conquest. Some believed that humanity could coexist with the galaxy, that it could learn from the mistakes of the past. Cain dismissed these voices, labeling them weak. But as his empire grew, so did the seeds of rebellion within his own ranks. Among the rebels was a former scientist named Dr. Lena Arkady, who had been revived from one of the bunkers. Unlike Cain, she saw the galaxy's potential for unity rather than domination. She secretly worked with a group of Korvani prisoners, devising a plan to stop Cain before his war consumed everything. As the galaxy burned, Arkady and her allies infiltrated Cain's flagship. Using a combination of human and Korvani technology, They attempted to disable the ship's command systems and broadcast a message of peace to the galaxy. The mission was desperate and nearly suicidal, but it succeeded, partially. The message reached the Galactic Council, rallying the fragmented civilizations to unite against Cain. But it also triggered a catastrophic failure in the flagship systems, sending it hurtling toward an uninhabited star system. Cain survived, but his fleet was fractured. The galaxy, united by necessity, began to push back, using the very hybrid technologies Cain had introduced to fight against him. Humanity's resurgence, once a tidal wave of destruction, became a war of attrition. Cain's war machine slowed, but it didn't stop. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity again, and Cain had no intention of letting them forget. As he regrouped in the shadows, his eyes turned to the deeper void, where ancient secrets and forgotten powers lay waiting. Humanity had been revived, but the galaxy now faced a chilling question. Was the return of mankind a chance for redemption, or the beginning of its darkest chapter? Cain's fractured fleet drifted into the uncharted void, leaving behind the chaos and destruction it had sown. Though weakened, Cain remained resolute, his ambition undiminished. He had tasted the power of humanity's resurgence, and he knew it was only the beginning. The galaxy may have united against him, but he also understood their greatest weakness, their fear of conflict and their complacency after centuries of peace. Cain's sights turned toward the deeper void, beyond the reach of even the Galactic Council's knowledge. He had learned of ancient artifacts, remnants of civilizations far older than humanity, buried in the cold, forgotten corners of the universe. If he could harness these ancient powers, he could rebuild his empire, stronger and more fearsome than before. His first destination was a desolate star system on the edge of the void, known only in Korvani myths as the Silent Rift. It was said to house a structure left behind by a race known as the Eltarian, a species so advanced they had transcended physical form and disappeared from the galaxy long before any other civilization had risen. Cain's researchers had uncovered fragments of information suggesting that the Eltarian had left behind powerful devices capable of bending the fabric of reality itself. The journey to the Silent Rift was perilous. The remnants of Cain's fleet, battered and scattered, navigated treacherous anomalies and gravitational distortions that shredded weaker ships. Many of his remaining commanders questioned the wisdom of the expedition, but Cain's unyielding determination kept them in line. "The galaxy fears us now," he told them. "But when we return, they will worship us, or fall to their knees." When they finally reached the Silent Rift, the sight before them was breathtaking. A massive, ring-shaped structure floated near a dying star, its surface covered in swirling patterns of light and energy. The Eltarian artifact pulsed with a power unlike anything they had encountered. Even Cain, with his relentless confidence, felt a flicker of awe. Cain's scientists began analyzing the artifact, but it resisted every attempt to unlock its secrets. As they worked, strange phenomena began to manifest aboard the fleet. Faint whispers in the air, shadows moving where none should exist, and sudden, inexplicable malfunctions. Some of his crew began to believe the artifact was sentient, watching and testing them. One night, as Cain stood alone on the bridge of his flagship, the whispers reached him. They were not words, but impressions, visions of power, of domination, of humanity rising to rule the stars. The artifact, it seemed, recognized Cain's ambition. But it also sent a warning. The power it held was not meant for the weak or the indecisive. To wield it would require a sacrifice. Cain, undeterred, gave the order to activate the artifact. His scientists protested, warning that they didn't fully understand its mechanisms or its consequences. But Cain silenced them. "We were not revived to fear the unknown," he said. "We were revived to master it." As the artifact came to life, the entire system was bathed in a blinding light. Energy surged through Cain's fleet, rejuvenating their battered ships and enhancing their weapons and defenses. But the power came at a cost. The whispers turned to screams as the artifact's energy began to consume the weaker minds among the fleet. Crew members collapsed, their bodies writhing as the artifact extracted something intangible from them. Memories, thoughts, even their very essence. Cain stood unmoved as chaos erupted around him. To him, the loss of a few lives was a small price to pay for the power now at his command. His fleet, now reforged with the artifact's energy, emerged from the silent rift stronger than ever. But the artifact had left its mark. Those who survived felt its influence, their minds haunted by fragments of the Eltarians' ancient knowledge. Cain, too, felt it, a presence in the back of his mind, urging him forward. As Cain prepared to launch his renewed campaign, the Galactic Council scrambled to respond. Dr. Lena Arcadi, now a leading voice within the Council, warned that Cain's obsession with the artifact had unleashed something far worse than humanity's resurgence. "He's tampered with forces he doesn't understand," she told the Council. "The Eltarian left those artifacts behind for a reason, and it wasn't to be used as weapons." The Council began to mobilize, but internal divisions threatened their unity. Some species argued that Cain's actions were proof that humanity should have been left buried, and they called for the extermination of every remaining human colony. Others, inspired by Arcadi's plea for coexistence, pushed for a more measured approach, fearing that such an extreme response would only play into Cain's narrative. Meanwhile, Cain's fleet struck with newfound ferocity. Entire star systems fell before him, their defenses no match for the hybrid technologies empowered by the artifact. But as his victories mounted, so too did the whispers. The artifact's presence grew stronger, its influence spreading throughout his fleet. Crew members began to turn on each other, driven mad by visions of the Eltarians' impossible knowledge. Cain himself began to change. The artifact's power had enhanced him, but it had also corrupted him. His body no longer felt fully human, his mind plagued by thoughts that were not his own. Yet he pressed on, convinced that he could bend the artifact's power to his will. The final confrontation came at the heart of the galaxy, where Cain's fleet, now numbering in the thousands, faced the combined might of the Galactic Council. The battle was apocalyptic, with entire planets caught in the crossfire. Cain's forces, bolstered by the artifact's energy, seemed unstoppable. But within his own ranks, the seeds of rebellion were taking root. Dr. Arcadi, having infiltrated Cain's fleet with a small team of loyalists, activated a plan to disable the artifact. Using a combination of human ingenuity and Korvani technology, they created a device capable of severing the artifact's connection to Cain's fleet. The operation was a desperate gamble, and Arcadi knew that if it failed, the galaxy would fall. As the battle raged, Arcadi and her team reached the artifact, hidden within Cain's flagship. Cain confronted them, his body now a twisted amalgamation of human and Eltarian energy. "You can't stop this," he said, his voice echoing with otherworldly resonance. "This is humanity's destiny." "No," Arcadi replied, her voice steady. "This isn't humanity. This is you." With a final surge of effort, Arcadi activated the device. The artifact let out a piercing scream as its connection to the fleet was severed. Cain's ships faltered, their enhanced systems failing. The Galactic Council seized the moment, launching a coordinated assault that overwhelmed Cain's forces. In the chaos, Cain and the artifact disappeared, vanishing into the void. Some believed he had been destroyed, while others feared he had escaped, taking the artifact's power with him. The galaxy was left to rebuild, haunted by the knowledge of what had been unleashed, and the possibility that Cain would one day return. Humanity's resurgence had shaken the galaxy to its core. Though Cain's war had ended, the question remained: could humanity ever find a place among the stars, or would its ambition always lead to destruction? For now, the galaxy could only wait and hope that the lessons of the past would not be forgotten. Years passed after Cain's disappearance, but the galaxy remained uneasy. The Galactic Council, now battle-hardened and unified like never before, struggled to rebuild. Star systems that had been ravaged by Cain's fleet were slowly restored, but scars lingered, on planets, in civilizations, and in the collective memory of the galaxy. Dr. Lena Arkady became a central figure in the post-war era, not just as a hero who had thwarted Cain, but as a voice for reconciliation. She urged the Council to see the potential of humanity beyond the shadow of Cain's actions. Humanity is not defined by one man, she argued. We are a species of contradictions, capable of destruction, but also of creation, compassion, and unity. Yet fear and mistrust persisted. Many still saw humanity as a ticking time bomb, a species that had brought itself to the brink of extinction once before and had nearly done the same to the galaxy. The Council debated whether humanity's remnants should be isolated, assimilated, or eliminated altogether. Even among humans, divisions ran deep. Some sought redemption, wanting to integrate with the galaxy and prove their worth, while others clung to Cain's vision of dominance, hoping for his return. Unbeknownst to most, Cain was far from dead. His escape into the void had been deliberate, a calculated retreat to buy time. The artifact, though severed from his fleet, still pulsed with energy, feeding him its ancient knowledge. Cain's body had become something more than human, sustained and reshaped by the artifact's power. His mind, however, was a battlefield. The whispers that had once guided him now screamed incessantly, fragments of the Eltarian's long-lost will. Cain wrestled with the artifact's influence, determined to master it rather than succumb to it. He found refuge in the forgotten abyss, a region of space where even the most advanced sensors could not penetrate. Here, among the ruins of ancient Eltarian constructs, Cain discovered the truth about the artifact. It was not merely a weapon or a tool. It was a fragment of a greater machine, one that spanned galaxies and dimensions. The Eltarian had used this network to transcend physical existence, but in doing so, they had unleashed forces they could not control. The artifact was both a beacon and a key, and Cain realized its full activation would open a gateway to something beyond comprehension. Cain's ambition shifted. No longer content with ruling the galaxy, he sought to transcend it. The whispers spoke of a source, a realm where ultimate power lay waiting for those bold enough to claim it. But Cain was no fool. He knew the gateway would not simply grant him power, it would unleash a force that could consume the galaxy if left unchecked. For the first time, he began to question whether his vision for humanity's future justified the risk. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council, under Lena Arkady's leadership, had begun to detect faint traces of Cain's presence. Strange energy signatures were emanating from the forgotten abyss, patterns that matched the artifact's unique frequency. Arkady, torn between her duty to protect the galaxy and her lingering sense of responsibility for her fellow humans, pushed the Council to act. If we wait, she warned, Cain will return stronger than ever. We must confront him before it's too late. A coalition fleet was assembled, the largest in the galaxy's history. Ships from every species, bristling with the latest technology, set course for the forgotten abyss. Among them were a handful of human ships, led by Arkady herself. Though humanity's numbers were small, they fought with a fierce determination to reclaim their legacy from Cain's shadow. As the fleet entered the abyss, they encountered phenomena unlike anything they had seen before. Space itself seemed to twist and warp, light bending in impossible ways. Ancient Eltarian constructs drifted in the void, their surfaces etched with glowing runes that pulsed like a heartbeat. The fleet's instruments struggled to function, and the crews felt an overwhelming sense of unease, as though they were being watched. Cain's fleet, though smaller than before, was waiting for them. The ships were grotesque hybrids of human and Eltarian design, their hulls shimmering with an unnatural light. The battle that followed was chaotic and brutal, a clash of advanced technology and desperate willpower. The coalition forces outnumbered Cain's fleet, but his ships fought with a ferocity and resilience that belied their size. Amid the chaos, Arkady and a small strike team infiltrated Cain's flagship. Their mission was to destroy the artifact, severing its connection to Cain and ending his reign of terror once and for all. But as they reached the artifact's chamber, they found Cain waiting for them. He was no longer the man they remembered. His body, now a fusion of flesh and energy, radiated a terrifying power. His voice, when he spoke, echoed with a chorus of whispers. "You shouldn't have come," he said, his tone devoid of anger, as if he pitied them. "You don't understand what's at stake." Arkady stepped forward, her resolve unshaken. "And you don't understand what you've become," she replied. "This isn't about humanity anymore. It's about you and your obsession with power." Cain smiled faintly, as though amused by her defiance. "Power is the only language the universe understands," he said. "If you won't join me, then you'll die with the rest of them." The final confrontation was a battle of wills as much as weapons. Arkady's team fought to disable the artifact while Cain defended it with a ferocity that seemed unstoppable. But as the artifact's energy surged, it began to destabilize, its power threatening to tear the flagship and the entire abyss apart. Realizing that the artifact could not simply be destroyed, Arkady made a desperate decision. She activated a fail-safe device designed to overload the artifact, forcing it to collapse in on itself. The resulting implosion would destroy the abyss, but it was the only way to ensure Cain's ambitions would end. Cain, sensing what she intended, hesitated. For the first time, his certainty wavered. He saw the ruin his obsession had wrought, the countless lives lost, the galaxy on the brink of annihilation. And for a fleeting moment, the man he had once been surfaced. "You don't have to do this," he said, his voice softer now. "We can still build something better." Arkady met his gaze, her eyes filled with both sorrow and determination. "It's not about building something better," she said. "It's about stopping you." As the artifact imploded, the abyss collapsed into a singularity, consuming everything within. Arkady and her team barely escaped, their ship flung into the void as the coalition fleet fled the collapsing region. Cain's flagship, and Cain himself, were consumed by the singularity, his fate unknown. The galaxy emerged from the ordeal scarred but united. Humanity, though still mistrusted by many, began to rebuild under Arkady's leadership, determined to prove that its future could be brighter than its past. The artifact's power was gone, but its legacy remained, a reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition and the strength of those who stood against it. And though Cain was gone, whispers lingered in the dark corners of the void, hinting that his story might not yet be over.